Hello everyone, it's Karmavore here, and welcome to the Edge of the Universe. And today I'm going to be going over my Firestorm for 3.16 Scourge League. There was a lot of updates with the passive tree, so I had to reinvent the tree and kind of start from scratch. So we can go over that quickly. In my POB, I have 4 setups. I have 2 for DPS and 2 for defenses for level 90 and level 95 respectively. So we'll go ahead and look at the first one, which is our defensive tree setup. We started with the Witch Wheel here and then come up. We grab Annihilation and these life nodes. We grab Mystic Bulwark, Ignatic Defense. And we work our way up through Cruel Preparation up to Heart of Flame and grabbing the Exposure for Fire Mastery. And then we grab Disciple the Forbidden and work our way out for the Jewel node, the life nodes, and then we grab Life Mastery. And then we come up to Serpent Stance. And we work our way up to our Cluster Jewel, where we have Double Fiddle, and again this is for the defensive setup, and our 3 passive Fire Jewel with Disorientating Display, Cremator, and Smoking Remains. Down here we have Arcane Potency with the Critical Mastery. We have Life, we have Sovereignty with the Reservation Mastery. Then we work our way down to our Watcher's Eye slot. And then we grab Staff Mastery with Counterweight and Whirling Barrier. Grab the life nodes here. Then we go Holy Dominion and up to Retribution, life nodes, and Light of Divinity. And then we work our way down to Glancing Blows and Tireless. And then we grab another Jewel node down here. Now for our Ascendancy stuff, we take Shaper of Storms, Mastermind of Discord, Heart of Destruction, and Bastion of Elements. For the defensive setup, we're not using Skitter bots, so that's why we take Shaper of Storms. And then when we go over here, I've got all this stuff set up so that you just have to tick on whatever Orda setup or Golem setup you are in. If you're in defensive, you do that stuff. So this is the Petrified Blood setup. We're using Petrified Blood, Precision, and Zealotry. And then for the Golems, this is the Petrified setup. You can choose any one of the 3. It's up to personal preference at that point. POB is not updating it. Oh, it's not enabled. That's why. There we go. Yeah, so with all this stuff, you can choose whichever one you want. And we'll move on to the DPS tree. So things change a little bit. We're not taking any of this middle stuff here. We're grabbing Nimbleness on the right side. And we don't take the Jewel node down here. Everything else is pretty much the same. Aside from the Cluster Jewel, we're using a Megalomaniac with Pressure Points and Fettle. And then we use another Quick Getaway and Pressure Points Jewel with another Fettle up here. Everything else is pretty much the same. And then again, we go to the skills to do the setups. And we go here for the auras. And the golems for TPS. So we're around about 6 million flat. I think this is post Bottled Faith, yeah. And with the setup, we take Leisure the Primordial instead of Shaper of Storms because we are using Skitter bots this time. And yeah, so 6 million, just at level 90, it's pretty fucking good, I think. And with Bottled Faith, that obviously the number goes up. So end up at about 6.3, but you don't need Bottled Faith at all. Oops. And then if we look at the endgame setups, we have, this is like max DPS setup that we could possibly achieve, I think, without like more investment. And we slot in the golems. So we're using 3 golems now because we have access to a Nema Stone because of the additional levels. And this is correct. So we're about 6.9. And then when you truly get to like, min-maxing this build, you would slot in this Firestorm because this has everything at level 21 and this should be at level 21. And at level 6, so this is like true endgame. And we're at about 7.9 million. Yeah, and then with Bottled Faith, I think we're at 8.3. So it is quite a lot of damage. We still have a decent amount of health with 5.4. It should actually be higher because, yeah, this should be level 95 now. And then if we take a look at the DPS, or the defensive setup, again, we're taking this middle stuff, annihilation, all that good stuff. And then we go to the auras and the golems. So for this, we're using a summon ice golem and chaos golem. And for the auras, again, it'll be the petrified setup that we have here. So we're about 5.9 with bottled faith, and without is 5.6. And we have 6.2 thousand life, which is quite a lot. We have about 528 regen per second. Almost cap spell block and max block for attacks. So we're fairly tanky. Our effective health pool is 26,000. Yeah, so this still is a respectable amount of damage, and it will probably end up being super tanky. Again, we're taking Shaper of Storms since this is the defensive setup, and we're not using Skitterbots. We have access to pressure points because of the additional levels, and we will be grabbing Nimbleness since, again, we have more levels. And there's the Anima Stone. So that's pretty much the tree, or the multiple trees. The notes will go over everything there. If you need to look at specific skill checks and what to change for Flask and the calculations to a change, all that good stuff. So then we'll go ahead and look at the armor, or my, items. We're using the Martyr. It's still the best in slot staff that you can get. There will probably be nothing that will ever compare to this thing. And with Scourge League, you have access to nice implicits like increased fire damage, so it gets even better. The only problem with Scourge is just finding a good negative modifier that you can work around. In my case, it was Lightning Res. I'm sure there are a lot of other ones with increased fire damage out there. It's just finding that good negative modifier to play around. For our gloves, we're just using life gloves. These are, upgradable. We just have the added fire damage against burning enemies and increased damage while leeching, since we're leeching with our amulet. Yeah, so these could have better, resistances. They could have could not have the regen on there. So there's definitely room to upgrade. This belt, I think is pretty fucking good, all things considered. It took me about 2 or 3 tries of rolling Scorch fossils with pristine fossils on a hunter Stygian vise, or not a hunter, sorry, a warlord Stygian vise. Costs about 70 exalts for one of those things. You just slam it on a Stygian vise that's above eye level 80, and then you use the 2 fossils, Scorched and Pristine, and you keep rolling until you get something good. So I got really lucky and hit tier 1 life and tier 1 ink fire damage, and then got the Warlord's mod on there as well. Sadly, it's not tier 1, but it's still a pretty good belt, all things considered. It does what it's supposed to do. And then we got some decent 2 stones with some movement speed, some res, some life, just generally what you need for fixing all the resistances that you do have, or needs for resistances that you do have. And then we have Circle of Anguish. I'm sure you can find ones out there that have the ink fire damage or increased damage or cast speed or some crit multi or something like that. All those are good modifiers to get on the ring. I got lucky and found one that had ink fire damage, so this is about 91% increased damage, as well as having mana reservation efficiency for Herald of Ash, which is very important because our mana is kind of fucked. So it's definitely nice to have as much mana reservation efficiency as possible. We have a really nice Vermilion ring, since we're not using Essence Room anymore because they gutted that item. This just has a lot of life and some lightning res on it. For me, I needed that specifically, and frenzy charges, or minimum frenzy charges, sorry. For our amulet, we're just using, well, I got lucky and bought this for like 3x. The only implicits or, modifiers that you need on the item are Leech and +1 for Fire Skill Gems. Everything else that you can get past that is just cake for the item. Obviously you want life and some cast speed, so yeah, it's a pretty good amulet. And we're anointing marked for death because we're using Assassin's Mark, so everything will be marked and we'll have Culling Strike against those enemies. And then we're using the Firestorm helm. It has the enchant, increased fire damage, max life, and cannot be chilled or frozen if you used a fire skill recently. And we are playing a fire build, so we will always have freeze and chill immunity because of that. And for our armor, we have a nice high life armor base with some resistances on it. Obviously this could be upgraded to be a bit better, but the main important piece is that it has the gain 1 endurance charge every second you've been hit. And for the craft, I will be upgrading it so it has the increased life and mana on it, just for a bit more HP. In terms of jewels, I got really fucking lucky and found this for like 1x. This jewel is absolutely goated. Like, it's just cracked how good this thing is. There are probably 0 on the market that are like it. I was extremely lucky, as I said, to find this thing. It has tier 1 everything aside from the spell damage to while wielding two-handed. But yeah, this jewel is insane. So hopefully you can find something similar to it, but don't get your hopes up because it is an insane item, or jewel rather. But for the other ones, you kind of want to just match what I have here with double fire damage to spells. So it would be just fire damage to spells, and then while you're wielding a two-handed weapon, max life, and then some form of like crit multi or something like this, something crit related. For other jewel, I'm just using a increased maximum life, crit multi, and fire damage. I think you can pick these up for like 20 chaos, so fairly easy to find, not hard to roll if you're looking for that sort of thing. And for our Watcher's Eye, we have a double zealotry one. I think I picked this up for like 7x. Yeah, I think the individual like cast speed one is like 20 chaos by itself, and the other zealotry one is about like 30 C by itself, so you're not going to be hard pressed to find those, but in conjunction you may have a harder time finding a double, so good luck when you're searching for it. Yeah, I think that's everything else. In terms of our stuff, we have our cluster with the 3 passage, cremator, disorientating display, smoking remains, and then our megalomaniac with fettle and pressure points, and then we'll have another crit cluster with pressure points and quick getaway, and another fettle for more life. So that's that. And then we can go over our skill links. So I'm running Firestorm. The anomalous version is no longer better since they nerfed it. I think it does like damage over time now instead of initial hit damage, so just regular Firestorm is the way to go, which is a big bonus because it means it's super cheap to find a level 21. We're using an Anomalous Unleash. There was some arguments to be made with Spell Echo, but in the end, Unleash just always outperforms it because there are very few scenarios where you just get to tee off on a boss. There are some bosses that you get to do that, but not all of them, so Unleash will always be more consistent in my eyes. Inspiration should be Diversion Inspiration for reduced mana cost. So that'll be something that I'm upgrading pretty soon, but I'm working towards getting my Bottled Faith. I'm using Anomalous Increased Critical Strike support, Awakened Elemental Focus support, Anomalous Increased Critical Damage support, and then for our movement skill, I'm using Faster Casting, Arcane Surge, and Flame Dash. And then I have Anomalous Summon Ice Golem. I have Precision, Summon Lightning Golem Anomalous, Summon Skitterbots. I think the Divergent version is the one that has buff effect, or increased buff effect for the Skitterbots, so that will be something I'm upgrading as well. And then I'm running Anomalous Zealotry. And then for our brand setup, we have Wave of Conviction, Arcanist Brand, Combustion, and Onslaught, and eventually I'll be putting Assassin's Mark in here, so everything is automated. And then I'm running Herald of Ash, Anomalous Assassin's Mark, Anomalous Steelskin, and Infernal Cry. So a lot of the cost of this build comes from the skill gems themselves. The gear is fairly cheap. I think like some of the pieces are fairly expensive, but rolling stuff like the Vermilion Ring is not very hard with Harvest or just fossil crafting. A lot of this stuff is very achievable by yourself. Like this belt maybe cost me less than 90 chaos to make, but is truly insane for the build. So yeah, working towards stuff like that is not impossible, but the gems are like the most expensive and most important piece of the build since they apply the most damage. Obviously the regular versions are totally fine, but you are missing out on a lot of damage because of, not upgrading. So I do recommend doing that eventually. So I'll just go ahead and do a little map showcase while I round this video off. I think that was everything. Other than flasks, I'm using a Divine Panic Life Flask. It just has the instant recovery while on low life, and you want to get the lowest amount of reduced amount recovered as you possibly can. I got CB immunity on this as well as bleeding immunity. Our enduring mana flask, because we have mana problems, there's no way to really sustain, the brand self-casting and Firestorm by itself. So in some situations, if you're not able to kill a boss, efficiently with using your flasks efficiently, you could be kind of fucked, but you do regen mana eventually, but it just means you won't be able to use your brand all that often. And then our diamond flask for crit will eventually turn into Bottle Faith. Again, you don't need Bottle Faith, but it's obviously like an upgrade that you're working towards, so you'll get there eventually. And then for mapping, I'm using like a Quicksilver Flask. For bossing, you can replace it with the Ziri's Promise or Wise Oak. And then we have Rumi's Concoction for all the armor and block and good stuff there. So yeah, I'll go into the map showcase and kind of just talk while I kill shit and show you a bit of how the build plays. Comparatively to last league, there's like really no change. It's pretty much all the same. But obviously with this league Scourge, it can get kind of insane, and the monsters move at you super quickly, so it's pretty dicey sometimes. But you can get lucky with using your Infernal Cry if the packs are big enough on spawn, because they do come in stunned, and you can just blow up an entire screen. But one of the problems with this build, in Scourge specifically, is it's not slow, but like the pace of the encounter is super fast, so you have to be constantly moving, and the way the timer works, it just you run down fairly quickly, and you can only really clear a tiny screen in front of you. So I've yet to push like above 150 for Scourge stacks with this build thus far, but I'm sure it's able to get there eventually. It just takes a lot of work. And it can get pretty scary. Like, we're not super tanky, and the damage is there, but it's not like off screening all the time. And like, some builds are just super efficient at clearing out Scourge. This one's not. It's self-cast Firestorm. It's not always going to be great. It's not the most insane mapper, but I'm playing the build that I like, and I'm really glad that other people are out there enjoying the build too and want to see more of it. And I'm very happy to supply that content for you guys. And I'm very much looking forward to eventually getting to level 95 with the build and trying out the defensive setup and seeing how tanky that truly is, and if it's even worth it at all. That's kind of just theory. I was just testing out some stuff in POB, and it looked fairly, chunky, and the damage is still there, so I'm excited to see if it actually works. If not, then the true, full glass cannon, but still being somewhat tanky is there, hitting upwards of 8.3 million or whatever it was is truly insane for Firestorm. I didn't think after last league I could really push it any higher. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely doable, and it can go higher from the point that I've got it to too. There's a lot of upgrades that can happen in the build, little finicky things with skill gems and your gear and some jewels and another insane Watcher's Eye that you could possibly get. Maybe I can find the boss here. But yeah, in cases like that, you can just get one shot if you're not super careful in Scourge. Some of the monsters are just waiting to just blow you up, and you're not going to get a chance to run away because they're just going to try and murder you as quickly as possible. And one of the downsides of glancing blows is if you get chunked a bunch by repeated hits, you will die. There's no way around it, but taking small consecutive hits here and there is okay with glancing blows. And nice, we got a Basilica map. That's pretty cool. So that's mapping with the build. Yeah, I mean, it's just smooth, beautiful gameplay to watch. Firestorm's exploding fucking monsters, and yeah, it's everything that I wanted Firestorm to be. It's the same as last league. But yeah, thanks for hearing me ramble, and I will keep you guys updated when I hit 95, and I will make another video, hopefully showcasing the defensive setup that I have. And until then, I will catch you guys later. Stay safe out there, Exiles. Have a good night.